Hiya, and welcome to Try It Tuesday, where I go over random crochet tips and tricks, or showing you how to actually crochet. And every once in a while, I'll also throw in some other fiber art thing. But anyway, today I'm going to talk to you about something that was requested by this person over here. And it is how to crochet when you have to use a chain instead of a magic circle, or the chain 2 method, all that jazz. So I'm going to kind of go over that for you today, and what really helps is if you have a pattern like my Pop-Tart one that has pictures like this right here and little tips and tricks on how to actually achieve that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start for you. So I'm not actually going to do my full like Pop-Tart one, but one of my first tips in doing this is after you put that first stitch in, put a stitch marker there so you know exactly where you're going. So for this example, I'm just going to chain 10, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sorry about the heavy breathing. I've been running up and down the stairs to check out my son because he's sick today. But anyway, so the first thing you're going to do, unless the pattern states otherwise, is you're going to single crochet into the the second stitch from the hook. And my big piece of advice is when you go through the first side, make sure you go behind the first loop and the back bump like we discussed in the last video. So what you'll do, so this is the first stitch, so we're going into the second, and what I do is I make it my goal to just go under this one here. So if I do that, it automatically goes behind that back bump too. So that's going to keep the holes from, not showing up. And usually what I do is I only put one in that first hole, but here's the hole. So I'm going to put a stitch marker there so I know exactly where those last 4 are going to go. And then you're going to do the same thing all the way across. And I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through this part a little bit, but it's the same thing. Try and go under that one and under the back loop there. So you're actually going under 2 loops at the same time, and you're leaving one technically unworked. So when you go through the other side, it'll make more sense. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through this part. So I'll be back in just a minute after I fast forward. As long as it'll let me fast forward. I think it lets me do that. So anyway, I'm going to keep talking just in case for whatever reason it doesn't let me fast forward. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. The lighting in my room isn't that great today. That was not perfect. Oh, see, I only went through the first loop that time. Make sure that you're going through both. That's what keeps those gaps away. You want to go through the bottom and past the back bump. Sorry if that got louder. I needed to lean in so I could actually see what I was doing. There we go. And almost to that last stitch. There we go. Hopefully this is staying on camera for you guys. Okay, so this is the last stitch because this is the knot here and this is the last stitch. So in this one, in the case of this pattern, it would be 5 single crochet in this spot in the same stitch, and that's how you turn to go down the other side. And you'll see this pattern, or this type of start, with a lot of different patterns, like my Pop-Tart, or I've seen a few like hammerheads start that way, like hammerhead sharks, or stingray. Something that has kind of like a flat head will sometimes start this way just because it's easier. Now we're going to go down the other side, and the only loop that's left is the back loop. So when you're going this way, or I guess what that would be anyway, there's one loop left, and you're going to go all the way back. And a fun little tip here, which you don't have to do because usually it's inside the body, but I crochet over the tail as well. And then you're going to go ahead and do the same thing. So you're going over the one thing, or the tail, and going through the one loop that's left over. And you should have the same amount of stitches going down the side as you did on the other one. And then almost there. And the thing is I think what a lot of people mess up on is they work into that skipped stitch at the very beginning, and you're not supposed to work into that one. So now we're all the way back, and then right here in this loop, which is where our starting was, we're going to put 4 more single crochet because there's already 1 in it from the beginning. So you can take this out. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that is how you would end it, and then your first stitch is here. This is your first stitch, not this. This is your first stitch. So if you want to, you can actually mark the loop here and your first stitch, so that way you don't lose it. And that is what it should look like. So less holy. I mean, it's not perfect, but as long as that's how they've written their pattern, so read the instructions really carefully. Don't put in that first stitch and keep working this way, and it shouldn't end up all sideways, because I've had projects where it turned out sideways for the same reason. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions or if you need me to explain it a little bit better. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. You know, in hindsight, I'm going to go ahead and add this last little bit so you kind of can see how it works if you go into the correct stitches. And I personally like to mark the first stitch of each row, because that way if you have to put it down for whatever reason, 1, you know where your first stitch is, but 2, you also don't have to take the stitch marker out and move it if you decide to end on a row, because it just marks the first stitch of the row. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and single crochet around. And if you're doing something where you're immediately just going in on like just stacking the stitches instead of doing increases, it's a lot easier. But hopefully, I really hope that this was helpful and didn't make it more confusing, because I was trying to make sure I could get back upstairs. And then these ends are going to want to try and fold in on you, so if you can use your nail or something to push it back down. And it is definitely going to end up working kind of inside out, so after a few rows you will have to flip it. Just make sure you don't lose any of your stitches while you're going. So I think that's where a lot of people kind of run into issues. I originally was trying to do this video with cotton yarn. This is actually kind of my second take through. So I switched to acrylic because it just has that little bit extra stretch than cotton. But the cotton probably would have shown the stitches a little better. But anyway, I just wanted to do like one full round for y'all so you can see that it's actually going to turn out oval instead of kind of cattywampus if it's not done correctly. And honestly, it really has to do with the pattern writer too and how they have their stuff placed. So sometimes they do it slightly different and then you don't know that, or sometimes tension can throw it off, and the type of yarn. There's all kinds of things that can kind of throw it off. So anyway, there it is with one row. Looks a little weird, but basically what's going to happen if you keep going is the sides are going to stack up. But you can see that the stitching in the middle isn't really holy except for these little pieces right here, but that really won't be crazy noticeable after you keep going. So anyway, now thank you, and have a wonderful day.